Okay, today's video we're going to talk about auto tagging, or basically adding UTM tags at the end of your Google ad final URLs. When you do this, to be able to track inside your CRM systems or in other software when a form lead is generated on your site. You know, basically the mechanics behind that. First of all, why you want to do that if you don't know to do that or are doing that now. But specifically when you do that, why you don't want to rely on so-called auto tagging in Google Ads to do that, or manual tagging. You want to rely on this new method called hybrid method tagging. And with that, you'll be able to get a nice clean implementation. Your Google Analytics data won't get screwed up, and you'll still have the precious campaign data, such as what keywords people type in, what campaign they came from, what ad group they came from, what ad they clicked on, right within your leads details inside your CRM when a lead is generated through the contact form. So with that, I'm going to go through what these details are. Of course, again, why you would actually want to have those details with your form lead if you don't have them right now and you're generating leads through your site. For anybody who has anything where people have to make a decision over time, if you've got a broken toilet, you don't need to do this so much. But if you have any kind of business-to-business service, particularly, or anything where you're selling anything over, a few $100s, basically, you want to do this in order to be able to get the full value out of your Google Ads advertising. Half the value in your Google Ads advertising is in the data. What the data will tell you about what worked to do more of and what did less, so that you can take the budget from that and reallocate it to the parts of your account that's doing above average, if you will. With having your information flow into your CRM, not only just having that leads information, but having the details about where they came from precisely from your Google Ads account, you can run long-term analysis as to the exact ads, ad groups, campaigns, keywords, and so forth that actually paid off the highest returns for your company, so you can focus on those more and more over time. And the more data you get, the more money you're going to make, because the more efficient you're going to be about running your ads if you collect the data. And so therefore you want to start collecting data now, so that a year or 2 years from now, you know exactly where the return's coming from on Google Ads, so you can focus on that and make a massive amount of money. That's how the people who make really, really good money doing lead generation on Google Ads get it from, is they're tracking the lead all the way to a sale, and they're then going back to their ad accounts to refine based upon what parts of their account got the highest of the highest returns, so they can do more of it and get rid of the stuff that's not doing as good, test new things, go through the process of figuring that out again, and then stacking up a really big account, having this data at their disposal to decide whether the new things they did worked or not. So that said, I'll get into the content here and go through all of those things in detail here. So first of all, for a background, if you want to generate form leads on your site, and along with those form leads, you want the leads details, not just the first name, last name, company name, budget, that kind of thing that you would have on your form naturally. You can have also with it by having something called a hidden form field. It's basically another field on your form that nobody can see, but it's there. It's there in the code, so to say. And that information, or through the hidden form field, you can actually include the campaign name, the ad name, specifically that you've named the ad inside Google Ads that they clicked on originally, to eventually, or when, before they filled out the form, what ad they clicked on, what keyword they typed in on Google. If you're talking about Google search, the ad group that they came through, you could collect all that data so that when the form is submitted, at the same time, all that information's submitted with the form, which that information comes directly from the URL on the user's web browser. So instead of having your website landing page in the URL, it'll say something at the end like and UTM underscore campaign name equals campaign 1 and underscore UTM underscore keyword equals, and then the keyword that they typed in. All that information will be in the URL. And then with the hidden form field and a little bit of scripting, the form field, when it's submitted, or when the form's submitted, those extra details from the URL gets pulled from the URL added with the form details via means of the hidden form field and submit it to your CRM. And you can actually go further with this, by the way, and have it so that when somebody comes to your site, that information's pulled. So later on when they fill out a form, they could go to another part of your website where the information wouldn't be in the URL anymore, and the information gets sent right into your CRM with the rest of your lead details anyway, because you have a cookie set up so that once they get to your site, whether that's now or 30 days from now, that those original details about what ad they clicked on, what keyword they typed in, and so forth will be included with the lead details when it arrives in your CRM system. But anyway, with all that said, it's the UTM tagging of your ad final URLs that's going to make all this possible. So you got to make sure, in other words, with that whole breakdown I gave you, that the URL for the user after they come to your web page and after clicking on your ad, that the URL has the keyword, the ad name, the ad group name, the campaign name in the URL, so that your script that you'll set up to collect that information for when the user types in the form and it submits it, that all that details can be sent along with it. So there are actually some CRMs though that are, because I know what you're saying right now, Corey, I have a Zoho CRM, this does this supposedly for me automatically. There are certainly some CRMs out there that will actually go out there and make sure that in your CRM, all these lead details about campaign name, keyword that the user typed in and so forth is included with the lead inside my CRM automatically, because they have a direct integration between the CRM and Google Ads. And some of them certainly are out there, Zoho CRM being one, but more reliable than that tool, because anytime you start bringing in software, it gets to be glitchy. The software changes, the CRM changes that software on a regular basis. For me, I'm going to rely on Google's code more than the CRM's code. So I would then revert to it, if it were me, using this manual tagging, because I know it's very, very reliable in its operation. The last thing you want to do is get big gaps in your data, because the integration between your CRM and Google is not working correctly and these lead details wasn't being pulled out. Given half the value from running Google Ads is finding out what did not work and what does work, like I said, because if you run the ads long enough, you're going to make good money. It's just a matter of when and do you have enough data to know exactly where to put your chips. So I would recommend doing this so-called manual tagging of your URLs or tagging of your URLs, so that when you submit a form, the details can be pulled from from the user's browser's URL, versus through some scripting that the CRM company gives you to put on your site that grabs all the information automatically anyway. Now, another question you probably are asking yourself already, or maybe asking yourself for a few of you advanced guys out there or gals, is why is it that having that information inside my Salesforce or Zoho CRM or Pipedrive CRM or whatever, why is that important when the Google Ads account can technically tell me, what keywords, ads, campaigns people were clicking on or going through when they filled out a contact form, simply by having a conversion goal set up inside my Google Ads account that tracks whether or not somebody fills out a form. The reason for this is very, very simple. Well, there's multiple reasons here, I should say. The first of which, you can't, realistically, so by default, what most people know how to do is they know how to track in Google Ads if somebody fills out the form, but that's it. There's actually a way to track whether that form lead that somebody filled in was qualified or not, or did they buy or not, how much did they buy, how much was the ROI that you got from that click inside your CRM or just in general, and then get that information re-imported into Google Ads, so you can see then by ad, by campaign, by ad group, by keyword, how many people that you got, not just that filled out the form, but bought on each one of these levels inside your Google Ads account. You can do this through that offline conversion tracking. So if you're interested in that, which you should also do, by the way, you should have in your Google Ads account, all the way down to the keyword, ad group, campaign, all that, what's generating a lead, a form lead, since we're talking about form leads here, how many of those warm leads were qualified, which would be another goal that you set up. How many people of those people bought? How many of those people who bought, what was the ROI from how much you spent on ads versus how much revenue you got? The problem with just having the Google Ads side of the tracking though, and why you want to add in the CRM side of the tracking, is because of lead cycle times. Okay, so with that, Google Ads, with this offline conversion tracking system that I mentioned that Google lets you do to make sure that when a lead comes in from your campaigns, you could basically follow along with that lead, and when they end up being qualified, when they end up buying, so on and so forth, you can import that data back into your Google Ads account through the offline conversion tracking process. What they don't allow you to do though is have, when somebody fills out the form and ends up buying 92 days from now, that data is so-called too old for Google to let you track by campaign, by keyword, by ad group, and so forth inside your Google Ads account, because they only allow you 90 days tops from the time that the user clicks on your ad and gets to your site, and ultimately not even fill out the form, but just from the time that they get to your site before that lead is so-called too old. So if they get to your site but they don't fill out the form maybe for 2 weeks later, and then they don't then on top of that ultimately buy for 90 days, that purchase data that you want to have passed back to Google Ads so you could track by keyword how much revenue I'm generating from all my leads, and so I know how to modify my bidding or my strategy on my keywords. You can't do it because that lead is too old at that point. By having your URLs tagged with these UTM tags that I'm going to mention how to set up here next, you could actually have data that goes beyond 90 days in terms of who've bought from all the leads you came in that have came in. Leads by keyword, of each keyword, how much revenue have you generated, how much profit have you generated, and so forth. You could can generate long-term reports inside your CRM, or just exporting from your CRM. If you have what I'm about to explain how this is set up, if you do this for yourself, a year from now, 2 years from now, you can run a report as to how many sales by keyword did you get, and it'll track from the time, of course, that somebody fills out the form. It'll give you what keyword they typed in an ad group and so forth. And then later on, you could say, okay, out of all the people who bought, what keywords did they type in? Because I want to know, because I want to double down on those keywords on my Google Ads account. And you'll get every single person who either bought or did not buy, regardless of how much time it took from the time that they filled out the form to the time they bought. And as you know, in business-to-business sales, if you guys are doing that, what they call the lead sales cycle time is on average many, many months a lot of times, or 90 days plus at the very least. And even if you're selling to regular consumers, not businesses, if you're selling something over $500, generally speaking, it could be also on average more than 90 days before somebody decides to buy or not, which affects how much real analysis you can do just looking at the first 90 days from the time somebody clicks the ad to the time that they buy. A lot of those enough of the purchases will occur past day 90 day of initially searching and clicking on your ad that you won't get to make good decisions just looking at the first 90 days data. So anyway, with that, then eventually you're going to, like I said, have enough great quality data about what keywords generated purchases and the most revenue per click essentially on those keywords, that you'll know exactly where to spend your money on your account. So even if you weren't getting the kind of return you wanted on your Google Ads campaign, if you had set this up, you come back a year later to see who's bought, who's not bought, you can easily just cut out the part of your account that's waste and get to the return you want. Which this is where most people who run advertising, these rookies starting out, go wrong. They think, I'm going to turn on my ads, either it's a light switch, either it works or it doesn't. And that's as far from the truth as it possibly gets. You advertise to gather data to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and you slowly peel back the parts that don't work so you can do and just focus on the parts that work. and you do it and you get enough data, you will eventually figure out, as long as you have a decent product or service that's just, it's competitive in your market, you're going to figure out how to get a good return. The only question is, how many sales can you get at the return you want? Because if eventually, you're going to run out of opportunities, and whatever sales you get is what you can get at the ROI that you want. But it's not a matter of if you're never going to get ROI. And then from that standpoint, you have to run your campaign at a loss even for the first 6 months to a year to find out exactly what parts of the keywords in your market work for your brand, it's fine, because you could generally run that campaign for the next 9 years. So you'll make back everything you lost in the first year, and then in the 6 months after that, and then, or the 12 months after that, then the next year 2 to year 10, it's all pure profit, and it's automated profit. You got a campaign that delivers people to your doorstep ready to buy, and your salespeople don't even have to be that good of salespeople to close those type of sales, where they already, you're basically order taking at that point. That's what Google Ads really is about. What people don't like to admit that, because that means it takes money to do advertising. People like the idea that I don't have to have any money. I can come in, turn something on. The sales I get from the advertising I spend, the first sale will pay for the second day's advertising, and they'll pay my third day's advertising with the sale I get on day 2, and so forth. And they think they're just going to be able to come to the table and make all this work that everybody knows Google Ads. In other words, everybody knows about Google Ads in your market. Everybody wants those customers. Who wins them is the person who's willing to put in more time and effort to get it set up right, to get those customers and therefore be able to be efficient enough to afford them. And being able to afford them means you're willing to run at a loss for a little bit until you figure out what works exactly, and figure out what other people in your market don't know when they first come to the table. And then that creates a barrier to entry for everybody else once you're actually to the point where it is working for you. So, don't fall into the trap that if it doesn't work right away, it doesn't work. And because there's people advertising there that you've seen advertising there for years. And if you don't know, you can use SpyFu to see people in your market, how long they've been advertising. You can't admit to yourself somebody in your market's been advertising for the last 7 years and they've been losing money and they just don't know it. A lot of that can happen, often, but not every single person in your market is losing money and don't know it. Some people will, but in general, that should tell you there's something there that is feasible. You just aren't doing it right. And doing it right means you have to have a good setup, a better ad click-through rate, a better conversion rate on your landing pages, yes, than your competition in general to make a really good return. But beyond that, you have to take the last step, which is getting enough data so you know which part of what you just did, where's the 20% where all the profit's coming from, and then identifying it, and then focusing on it, and then making your money from there. So anyway, with that said, therefore, with everything I said, you want to tag the leads coming in inside your CRM, if you're have a CRM, or just in a spreadsheet, what keyword ad group, what keyword they typed in, what ad group they came through, what campaign they came through, what ad they came through, along with the form lead as it's submitted and in your database somewhere, okay? As far as a side note, with the phone calls you have, if you use a company called CallRail, call tracking, you can actually get the information about the same information, keyword, ad group, campaign, all that on the call side using that software. For form leads, this manual tagging option is where you get the same thing done. And so there are 3 types of ways to tag your ad URLs to make sure that when you add the hidden form field script to your URLs, that this extra information about campaign name, keyword that they typed in, and so forth is included with the lead as it comes through. If you don't have a CRM, that extra information will come through to your email address. It'll say, whatever was on your form, first name, last name, and then along with it, it'll say campaign, keyword, so on and so forth. So even if you didn't have a CRM, you could, a year later, come back, put it in a spreadsheet, every single keyword to every single lead, figure out which leads bought, which ones didn't, and then you'll know what keywords are profitable, which are not, essentially. But with that said, you still got to be able to, so one part that you have to go through is making sure the URL includes this information, and then the step 2 is to include the hidden form fields on your form, and the scripting that's going to allow you to get from that hidden form field, the information from those hidden form fields is pulled from your URL. And once you've done that, of course, there's a third part, which is essentially a cookie system, so that when somebody comes to your page, the information's stored until they are going to fill out your form, so that if they come back later to fill out your form, you still have their details of what they initially typed in and so forth when they initially came to your site, like I mentioned before you can do, and most people are going to do in this situation. But as far as to get that information in the URL, the scripting that goes on your web form, that's pretty straightforward. You can find that online. It's relatively easy to do. Google actually has information that you can use for this, for collecting something called the GCLID information, and you can use that as a way to potentially as a way to get the hidden form fields on your form. But also there's many other tutorials on how to set up a hidden form field on a form and to extract information from the URL in the browser. As far as the URL itself, to make sure the details are there, there's actually 3 types of ways that you can tag the URL so that the URL doesn't have your landing page, but it has information about the user's click, what ad they clicked on, what keyword they typed in, and so forth. There's auto tag, manual tag, hybrid tagging. Auto tagging is what Google has on all their ads by default without having to do anything. Auto tagging has stuff at the end of the URL, because you could try this on somebody else's ad, waste somebody else's budget. Just go to Google, type in plumbing companies, my city, or whatever. Find an ad, click on it, and once you get to that person's landing page, look up at the URL and look at the URL. You'll notice all this it's basically a bunch of, looks like gibberish essentially, after the URL. And with that gibberish, if you will, make sure that Google can track that user for their purposes, mainly for Google Analytics, but also for Google Ads tracking purposes. And but that's what it's there for. And that's set up through what is called auto tagging by default. You could disable auto tagging, and you could set up manual tagging. Manual tagging is basically what you're doing is everything at the end of the URL that shows up, you can decide what shows up there manually. And so if you shut off auto tagging, which means you'll have manual tagging, you could put a string of information at the end of the URL that you can use to then, when you have your hidden form fields on your form, that information is pulled from there. And the way that essentially is done is through, Google has a UTM generator that you can find online that's free. And what it essentially is something like, here's your URL. What you do if you were going to do manual tagging is here's your URL, then you have a question mark, and then you put like UTM _ source equals Google and this is supposed to be an ampersand. I can't do that very well. UTM underscores medium equals PPC. And so basically what happens is if you have a hidden form field, it's supposed to look for the source. It'll check the URL and it'll look for UTM source, and then it'll put in there the Google, because that's within the URL. If there's a hidden form field that's supposed to look for medium, it'll check the URL for UTM medium, and then if it finds that, it'll put whatever is directly after it, which is PPC, which I predefined for UTM medium to show up as PPC in my lead as it comes through to my email address or my CRM. And so that would be manual tagging. You have to do it yourself. It looks complicated. This is not complicated. With Google's UTM generator, you just type in there what you want to track, then you just copy and paste whatever they give you to put on your URLs. On the end of your URL, you save it, you're done. But there's a third technical way to do this, and that's through a hybrid method. This is for all practical purposes, you don't want to do manual tagging. There's not a situation that I know of course, there's some rare situations, I'm sure. A lot of you guys might want to, that would run into that, might want to do this. But for all practical purposes here, hybrid tagging is the only thing that you want. If you're not going to do auto tagging, you do hybrid tagging. Hybrid tagging allows Google to keep the auto tagging they have on default so they can do tracking in Google Analytics well and through Google Ads but it allows you to do manual tagging of your URLs as well. And so the auto tagging that Google doesn't allow you to have so that you can put the keyword, ad group, ad name, campaign name in with the form details when they're submitted. So what hybrid tagging does is it keeps all the stuff that Google puts at the end of the URL, plus you can add your own custom UTM tags so that your form, when it's submitted, has the ad name, keyword name, campaign name, ad group name along with it. So you get the best of both worlds. You can track in Google Analytics well, / Google Ads well, and you can have your form carry with it the details about what the user was clicking on, so you can do long-term analysis of your leads like I was talking about before. And with the hybrid tagging, it's the same way that I mentioned you would do it for the manual tagging here. You just add this stuff to the end of your URL. And the second small step you do is you go into Google Analytics, and there's a specific checkbox under the properties of your Google Analytics. If this is assuming you are using Google Analytics, which if you're not, you should start using it, because all the information in Google Analytics allows you, again, to get the full value from what you're doing on Google Ads. But through Google Analytics, most people that are watching this is going to be using it already, but there's a checkbox under the properties menu that has something that says allow manual tagging, parentheses UTM values, to override auto tagging, parentheses GCLAD values. And what that does is it makes sure that the UTM, the manual tagging you put at the end of your ad URL, to make sure that the final URL or the form has with it the ad name, campaign name, and all that, it doesn't screw up your Google Analytics tracking. Okay, so you can keep and preserve your Google Analytics tracking as if you never changed anything, and have the URL have all the manual UTM tags at the end of the URL so that you can have all the information about the user, campaign they came from, keyword they typed in, and so forth, with your form information when it arrives to your email or in your CRM. So respectively, that hybrid method is the one that you're going to use if you're going to do having the details submit with the form and go through the process I mentioned here to do long-term analysis of your leads, so you could see past 90 days who bought, who did it by keyword, by ad group, and so forth. So in summary here, again, you need to have so it'd be inside of your ad menu, you have to add at the end of your URL, your ad final URL, your UTM tags, so that you can actually have the information show up in the URL when the user clicks on your ad. You need to have hidden form fields on each one of your forms, which I recommend by default doing source, medium, ad group, ad name, keyword, and campaign name. With all that information, you will basically have everything that you want to do. You can add GCLID in there, which it's like a serial number for every click, so that you can do this offline conversion tracking here that I talked about earlier. I won't get into that. And then you got to have a script there to have a cookie dropped on the user's browser, so that what was in the URL gets pulled and stored in the database of in the user's browser until they go fill out the form. So if they visit multiple pages, that information that was in the URL originally goes through the form to your email or to your CRM. As a fourth small step, you also got to have inside your CRM, if you're using a CRM, so that your lead section or your contact section, wherever that lead's contact information goes, that you have an actual field for campaign name, ad name, keyword, all that stuff. So of course, when things come through, they go to there's a place for it in your CRM. But that's in general what to do with how to do long-term analysis of your campaigns, and in terms of the leads you generate, what goes on to sales, you can refine your campaigns. There's a few small other considerations here. The implementation here, so if you are using responsive text or display ads, which is the new version of Google Ads, you can actually, instead of having it at the end of the final URL, adding these UTM tags, you can add it using under advanced URL options after you open up if you were to go to edit the ad, on the ad menu there where you can edit the ad at the bottom of the screen, it'll say advanced URL options. You're going to paste these UTM tags that Google gives you through the UTM generator to the final URL suffix, and there's basically a separate box for the UTM tags now that you want to have versus adding it to the URL itself. That would be the way that you would want to do it there. If you're using expanded text ads, the old version of Google's ads or older version, you're going to have to add it to the regular at the end of the final URL itself, okay? And so that's something to mention there. And then one thing I want to also point out, that if you have campaigns running already, which you probably do at the time of watching this video, if you want to add these UTM tags to your URL so that your custom hidden form fields on your contact forms pull the information that I'm talking about here about campaign, ad group, and so forth. If you add these UTM tags to your final URL suffix, I found using Google Ads Editor that it'll delete your old ad and create a new ad. So you might, just something to be aware of. It's just a small thing on the side here, which if you have ad history, that's not a great kind of thing to do, so to say, or if you will. So ultimately, and if you're changing the URL, it's gonna, the algorithm shouldn't, mess with your ad performance at all, but there's no guarantee of that with Google. So if you have campaigns running, maybe you do this on your off season. So just to make sure the algorithm, which has a big part of determining how much money you actually make from your ads, because the algorithm's constantly learning how to run your ads, that when you add these UTM tags to your account, nothing screwy goes on. But in general, that is pretty much the whole kitten and caboodle that I wanted to go through today about adding UTM tags to your ad URLs, making sure information passes there to your contact forms and to your email or your CRM, so you could do long-term analysis of the leads that you're getting, what's working, how much revenue you're generating by keyword, by campaign, and so forth, because that matters a lot as to whether or not, if you're going to make a little money with Google Ads or a lot, because a lot of the bigger purchases, the more money that someone's going to spend, the longer of time proportionally that they're going to think about their purchase before they buy. And so if you're just looking at whether or not people buy and what goes on with the lead short term, you're going to leave out the data about the monster deals that take longer to close. So if you're ignoring the long-term analysis side of things, you're going to miss out on these great opportunities. There's certain keywords that only generate monster deals, and if you don't have the foresight as to discover those monster deals exactly where they were sourced from, then you're going to be missing out on, potentially you could have doubled your bid on a certain keyword that brings in only monster deals and leave out half those monster deals from that keyword on the table. So that's what this particular strategy is about. So auto tagging is okay, but it's not, as far as what you should be doing if you're generating leads and you're selling something that's a little bit more expensive, at least $500+ in cost, or you're selling to businesses, you should be doing this hybrid tagging method and making sure you're collecting the information along with the form lead as it comes in. You should track your phone call leads the same way through a call tracking program, and long-term run analysis on what's working, what's not for you, what's producing the most profit, what's producing okay profit, what can you eliminate. So hopefully you got good information from this video. Wasn't the most exciting videos that I do, but it's very much important to, the boring, looking at the data, the number stuff is just as important as coming up with the ad copy and the landing pages for most of you guys, for that matter, if that's doing, bigger deals, bigger sales, particularly. So anyway, with that said, I'll wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a ton of other videos on this channel about other money-making PPC strategies. If you want to learn how to make a ton of money with PPC, you should watch this channel, as the stuff that I'm testing at our PPC firm here, which I'm the key strategist here at our firm, I'm giving to you on a silver platter on this particular channel. In that stuff that's working and making money, I tell you exactly how to do it, like I did here, but on very specific strategies, ad copies to use, offers to use, as well as the stuff that doesn't work, that just leeches money from your account. We give that information to you on this channel as well. Whereas most channels, they tell you about certain features or functions, and they don't really go into how to make money with these certain things. We're giving you how to make money on PPC on this channel. It's the best information you're going to find on YouTube. I don't know of a better source of information on here. If there is, stuff that legitimately gives you money-making strategies, I want to know about it myself. So you can let me know in the comments. But with that said, you'll be great at PPC if you follow through with the information I'm giving you here, because we're testing all the stuff at all times and giving you the stuff that works. I also, by the way, have a blog at guaranteepppc.com/blog, where we give you step-by-step advice on how to build PPC campaigns the way that we make them to guarantee our clients results. And so I authored that blog to give you information on how to build campaigns in a more detailed fashion, in that on this channel we go over at a high level on how to do certain things. On that blog we go into step-by-step with screenshots and so forth. So you may also be helped by that information, or certainly could be helped by that information, but if you want to go further, you can find information there as well by me. Beyond that, if you have any questions about anything I covered today, leave me a comment below. I get back to every person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days' time. So you can ask me anything you want there. And last thing I want to mention on this channel, or this video and channel, is we have a brand new program at our PPC agency where we're offering turnkey PPC campaigns. And what that is if somebody's in one country using a PPC campaign and you're in another country and you want to have a campaign that works immediately out of the box, we can show you the results, anonymized, if you will, of course, for that market that we're getting, so that to basically know that if we give you the exact campaign that they're using and landing pages and so forth, you could get the exact same results in your market ahead of time and know what you're going to get into. We literally sell the campaign templates and landing pages. Or if you want to start a new business in a new market, you could just go through our list of campaigns that we've already gotten good results in. If you're in a market where you don't compete with them, just use it. And instead of having to learn all this stuff about PPC that we're trying to teach you on this channel, you could just take the gold-plated thing that works, generates millions of dollars in profit a year, and start up a business around it. If you're doing something in the services space, you can literally start up a campaign like that in plumbing, foundation repair, whatever. The campaign's so efficient, you could outsource the work to another partner and just take a 5-10% cut profit margin for yourself off the top, just because you have a site and a campaign that working for you, and landing pages working to you, as far as something that took us years to build up the profitability on, and you're using without having to go through all that mess. So anyway, if you're interested in that, get a hold of us. Maybe we got a campaign running in your market already. You might get lucky. And with that, you certainly want to get your hands on that as well. So if you're interested in that, reach out to our firm. We'll let you know what we have as far as markets and results thereof. So I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you did get some good value out of this video, and I hope to see you in my next video, where we have another great video for you to make some more money with your PPC. See you then.